Welcome to the Cowfish Show, an exploration in human evolution, raising consciousness, creating happiness, fulfillment, and love, one soul at a time. I'm E.L. Brooks, a newly awakened soul on a mission to help people find their happiness and truth.
And I'm Lindsey Kimura, a happiness explorer empowering humans in wisdom and understanding. The universe united us to share our passions. Welcome to our show.
Hey. What's happening, guys?
Welcome back.
I'm Eric.
And I'm Lindsey. You may know us by now.
Hopefully, right? You're tuning in. So I'm looking at myself. I'm looking a little crazy because I didn't have time to go to my barber. So I had to do my hair myself. So forgive me. But it's New Year's and barber was not available. So I had to get him on another day. So, but the show must go on, right?
Yes.
So, how are you doing?
Good. And it's funny you notice those things because I didn't notice it.
Oh, I
think your hair looks
good in the mirror. And I was like, whoa, look at that. But it's all good. It's all good. The show must go on, right? So, before we get started, shout out to our sponsor, Magnum Watch. Go to magnumwatch.com. am rocking one today. I love this one. It's the Benedita. It's one of my favorite watches. You can wear it with anything, dress it up, dress it down. Things I like about Magnum is that you get a lot of watch for your money. And all of you guys have an opportunity to get one as well, 25% off using our coupon code Cowfish25. So, season 1, episode 4. Today we're talking about how to find your authenticity living in the present.
Yes. And I would say, what does authenticity mean? I find myself in all these episodes, Eric, kind of defining the word, right? Because we all have different definitions, I would say, and experiences of a word, which is hard to encapsulate everything in a single word. But we're going to elaborate and expound upon authenticity. And I wanted to share an experience I had because as a seeker, which I'm sure many of you guys are, always looking for more truth, how to know yourself deeper, how to kind of discover tools to get closer to the meaning of life. Why are we here? Existence. And I taught English in Japan for 1 year, about 10 years ago. And I remember whenever I travel has been that aspect that has really been my means to learn and to grow and to continue seeking and to learn about self, to learn about the world and others. I stood in front of a painting in Japan with a head and a bunch of just pop art colors, and it said, "Who am I?" And I just remember staring into that painting for minutes or probably even longer, not hours, but quite a long time. And I'm like, who am I? It really struck a chord. And I think authenticity, it really speaks to that, or that word. And who are we as humans, right? And I believe we're the sum of all of our experiences. So we are soul, which has many, many experiences, many lifetimes. We have our body, our actual physicality, our DNA strands, which also travels down the tree and the roots in your lineage. So this beautiful meeting of the soul with our DNA, with our bodies, creates the human. And I think one important thing to remember about authenticity is going back to the meaning of your name, going back to your roots, your family, getting to know yourself. And then also, I like to use the example of fruits. So there are pomegranates, apples, bananas, grapes, oranges. You want to know what kind of fruit you are and just be that fruit. Don't be a banana trying to be a pomegranate or a pomegranate trying to be a grape. It's like you are who you are and you want to bring out and express that. Sure, we can transform, we can change, but embracing who we are and then letting that show can be simple or not so simple, but that will get you to who you are. And my grandpa always said, he's passed now, but he said, always be Lindsey. And I never knew what that meant as a kid. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's my name. Of course I'm Lindsey. But now that I'm older, I understand that. Yeah. Just be you.
Just be you. It's easier said than done, though, right? Yeah, going back, one of the things that I remember or learning early on was that you can never please everybody. You're just not going to please everybody, right? And so, always talk about first level consciousness. And first level consciousness, we are out to be accepted, right? But like you said, we are our true authentic self is really an intersection between the soul, or the spirit, and our physical form, the body. So the soul actually resides within the body. It resides in your mind. Later on, we're going to do some exercises where you'll see how consciousness is free flowing at all times. You can't stop thinking. It's impossible. So we'll talk about that. But as you go through and you're experiencing life, we're typically, because of this narrative, we're taught very early on, being competitive. You're taught how to be a woman. I'm taught how to be a guy. There's conditions, there's limitations. And when we try to step outside of those, and express who we truly are, because some people are born, transgender, or and we can get into those kind of things. But I believe I've seen it firsthand. My son going to school with a 6-year-old who I literally saw transform within 2 years' time, and I saw it ahead of time. Actually, was thinking that maybe it was gay, but it wasn't. I mean, that person was born in the wrong body, and it was a woman. So, for that person at such a young age to step into their truth, more power to them, and more power to the family. But a lot of those things are very difficult when you're young, and so we end up living our lives for other people. And as you live your lives for other people, you start to really kind of bury yourself, and you lose yourself. And unfortunately, you don't necessarily find yourself until there's some sort of tragedy or there's some sort of pain, where the soul actually has an opportunity to open up. We don't really view it that way at the time, but when you get into spiritual or all of these scriptures like Rumi and stuff like that, he talks about the cure for pain is in the pain, because your heart opens up and it allows you to kind of become united with your soul if you know how to do it.
Yeah, the one Rumi quote I remember is, the wound is the place where the light enters. So it's like
Exactly,
when
yeah.
you are in that deep pain, that's when you can go deeper into yourself. And as we talked about in prior episodes, we are so multidimensional. We have so many aspects of self that we do need these triggers, these external events, people to mirror back to us. What are the things we need to look at in ourselves and to grow within? Again, like your example, this is different for everyone. There's no magic formula that's going to allow you to find yourself. But I would say allowing yourself to explore feelings, thoughts, sensations, activities that feel good and right to you can be tools or paths to navigating where you're meant to kind of be spending your time, your energy, your focus. So just do some exploring, try a new class, do certain things that feel right. And I like to talk, I know Eric and we talk a lot about intuition and wisdom and GPS, your guidance system. Mm-hmm. And I was surfing the other day with one of my best friends. She was in town, and we were talking about when is it best to use logic? When's it best to use your feeling? And then what we concluded is that this wisdom body, and we can talk about this in yoga, there are 5 koshas or sheaths, and those are our layers of the body. So we have our, let's see if I remember everything. We have our Annamaya kosha, which is the physical body, our Manomaya kosha, which is the mental body. We have our Pranayama kosha, which is our energy, like our life force, our chi. We have the Vijnanamaya kosha, which is the wisdom body. And then finally we have the Anandamaya kosha, which Ananda, is bliss. Mm-hmm. So the bliss body. And if we navigate from our wisdom body, that body will let us know how much logic and how much intuition or feeling I don't want to say intuition, how much we should go off of feeling. So I think it's like if you have a triangle, you have the wisdom body kind of guiding you, and then you have your feeling as a navigational tool. What does my gut say? What does my heart say? And then you have your mind. What's my logic telling me? I calculated this, I've measured. So yeah, I would say exploring how you feel on those many layers can be helpful.
Yeah, it's I talk about the soul being your compass, so to speak, and when you are in tune and aligned with your soul, then everything is kind of ebb and flow. But once again, it's very hard when you're living in a conditioned society, especially when we're being raised by parents that came out of or was very close to the Great Depression. From my understanding, this need for success and to avoid that particular pain. So there was this emphasis from our parents' generation that was, work hard, be successful, and you can't. There's no room for relaxation, so to speak. I mean, it's anything. Your world could crumble at any minute, so you have to build these resources and plan for a rainy day. So everyone coming out of the Great Depression just had that mindset, and that's what they taught to us. Mm-hmm. But we aren't living in a Great Depression. We're also not living in two world wars, right? So they saw wars, they saw Great Depression, and it was work hard, put yourself or your desires aside, just find a great job, and just plug away for that rainy day until you retire. And that's not really being authentic. That's not who we are meant to be. Each of us, I believe, is born. They say we're born with 3 different gifts. Mm-hmm. And if we don't tap into those gifts, or if we don't follow them, and it doesn't have to be our main source of living, but we have to include those gifts somehow in our lives. Otherwise, we will suffer, or if we're not following that course, we aren't living our truth and we're not being authentic. And so it's up to us to kind of tap into those. And like I said, we usually find or reunite with those when we experience some sort of trauma or some sort of pain, some sort of loss, because those are, you'll find out later on, as those are the opportunities where your soul and you can reunite, even though it's viewed as a tragedy, but it actually is like you said, it's the opportunity for the light within you to shine. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, and I would say what you were describing, Eric, is a lot of the beliefs that our predecessors have then become systems, which become programs, and then those programs from our parents, our grandparents, their grandparents download into us, just like software on a computer. We absorb that, especially when we're young, because we're not filtering what's coming into our subconscious. We're absorbing everything that's coming into our environment. And who has the most direct influence? It's generally our parents or our closest friends or family. So yes, we embody these programs. So throughout life, it's about seeing what is your program and what is your parents or somebody else's program in you, and being able to differentiate. I remember as a teen one time, I was doing something, whether it was an activity. My mom was a prima ballerina, cheerleader, like straight A student, so she always had that perfection mentality. Mm-hmm. And I took that in growing up, and I remember actually embodying, doing something physical, striving for perfection, whatever that meant. And I remember in that moment being like, I feel like I'm my mom, but in my body. And that was the first identifying moment where I was like, wait a second, I'm being my mom right now. There's something else that's Lindsey that's not that. Mm-hmm. So it was a very powerful experience. And I think throughout life, our different stages of growth and evolution, we can start to separate like what's our stuff and what's other people's stuff. And just like you would clear out your computer when the storage is getting full, like we talked about, Eric, or download new software, we want to stay up on our game, because the software is then what influences the hardware, like our physicality, and vice versa, like we talked about. It's transformation from within, but also transformation from without on the outside supports the inner.
Exactly, yeah. You are writing a book, and I am writing a book. And in my book, I've always been an observer of life. And I remember just going through different, I notate all kinds of different things that I observed for people. At the time I didn't know, but people really kind of breaking away and stepping into their truth. And I remember when I went to college, I went to University of Miami and had a really, really great jazz program, which I was in, and also had a really superior medical school. And so I was kind of acquaintance with this one medical student who went through the accelerated program. So it was a 6-year program, really, really super smart. And I witnessed probably my first breakdown. Like, this guy had a nervous breakdown. And it really stemmed from him not living his truth. He was in medical school. He hated medical school. He was only doing it for his parents. And he was in his residence. I mean, he was like, the finish line was right there. He was in his residency, and he just couldn't do it anymore. And I never knew what happened because I don't know if he dropped it. Well, he was in his residency, but I never followed up. But I just remembered, like, wow, that was kind of harsh, and it actually impacted me because I was double majoring. I was in music, but I was also in business because my dad was like, very hard. It's like, you ain't going to school, just do music, whatever.
Artist, Eric.
Yeah, you got to have something. This is the famous line everybody says. You got to have something to fall back on. Like, what do you mean fall back on? What if I want to do music? Like, what if I want to create? Like,
Plan A
I have
is
no
music.
bills or whatever, all this other stuff, and go to college, become a bad musician. I'm a great musician and just play music. But no, Dad was like, you got to have something to fall back on. So my dad actually passed when I was in college. And I remember, like, okay, I'm going to fulfill my obligation. But my fallback path that he created, or that we created, but it was heavily influenced by my dad, was to go to law school. And it was a compromise of both. Like, I liked music, and he wanted me to have something that was music related, but would be financially stable, right? So I was going to go to law school to become an entertainment lawyer. And that was not living in my truth. And so when he passed, I completed college, but I did not go to law school. I actually went and started working for 2 Live Crew.
You snuck it in.
Yeah, and got into the music industry. And so I fulfilled my, because at that point in time, I think I had gotten burnt out. Because one of the things about schools, like, they shove it down. Like, I was getting so much music. I was practicing all this other stuff. And I played on a couple of different records. But I really found that I liked being in the music industry and being behind the scenes and being able to eventually own my own label where I was actually helping create music. So I still was able to fulfill that part. But I remember just observing things like that. Another time I was playing basketball, and this guy, this is way back in the day with Sports Club LA, which Magic Johnson, all these celebrities used to play basketball there. And this one guy came, and I was like, this dude is just awesome, right? And I've always been a talker, got to know him, and he had a full ride scholarship to Ohio State playing basketball, and he had just quit. He dropped it because he had been playing basketball since he was probably 6.
Was he burnt out?
He was burnt out. Yeah, I mean, he was doing it for his father. His father was like, oh, you have the skills, you have this and all this other stuff, and it just wasn't in him. And so he was in California going to USC film school because he just loved making films.
Yeah.
And so his truth was not, I mean, he had the skills. Obviously, to get a full ride scholarship to Ohio State, you had to, have some skills. But he was not happy, and he was not living his truth, and he was willing to give it all up, give the false life up for pursuing what he really wanted to do. So it's just certain examples like that. I think it's all within us, but we push our authenticity aside a lot of times for either fear of being seen or fear of displeasing our parents. But at some point in time, we have to live our truth. The last story I'll say is an example of that. I think the biggest example of that is Caitlyn Jenner, right? Now, why after 65 years would you come out to be a woman if that was not your truth, right? Why risk it all? I mean, you were an Olympic athlete, you're a superhero, and to me, that was the saddest story. I was so happy and sad at the same time because I was like, wow, for 65 years, this person was not able to live their truth, But amen for the courage to finally come out and just, like it was a quote that I didn't have in here, but, he went through the church, he went through his family, and he's like, it's about time that I give this person, Caitlyn, the opportunity to live. And so for 65 years, he felt like he wasn't living. And how sad is that?
Yeah, I think that is such a powerful example of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think that doors end up opening when you do step into your truth. You might be worried that, I've put so much time, resources into this path that isn't for me, but because I've already put years of and time and money, I'm going to stay on it just to be on it. And I like to use the example of my dad because he went to USC as well, poli-sci biology major, pre-dental, and he got a summer job as a PA, production assistant in film. And being in he grew up in Hancock Park, was born in Maui, but he ended up getting a summer job on a TV show, and he's been in the film industry since 1979. So he was PA, gaffer. He started a lighting company, became a DP, and now he directs commercials and does some lighting projects. But it was something that the example of the door opens for you when you make a choice to be authentic. You don't have to worry or have fear that, I'm going to give up money, I'm going to give up XYZ. You do have to make a sacrifice in order to step onto your path. You can't have it all. We could have it all, but if you are shifting away from something that is not authentic into something that is, just know that doors will open for you. And one very helpful tool is a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And that will help you find your inner artist because like you, Eric, like me, we are artists at heart, but society, like you were the musician, music, I always said I wanted to be like a professional performer or a professional athlete. And that book will help you rekindle your inner artist because a lot of times Julia talks about being a shadow artist. And as an artist, if you're not stepping into your art and being that performer that you said you were going to be, or the musician, the painter, you oftentimes end up in careers or jobs where you are supporting other artists and being the platform, kind of the behind the scenes person. But deep down, if it is your purpose to be on stage, to be making art, you eventually need to let that out. And that book can be a helpful tool.
Yeah, good stuff there. So let's talk about some takeaways. We really didn't get into living in the present, but living out, being authentic. I think the biggest takeaway for me is spending time by yourself. A lot of people are so afraid of being alone. And there's a difference of being lonely and being alone. I love my alone time. I mean, it's a time for growth, but it's also just a time for quietness, where you get, we talk about downloads or whatever, but you get this information comes to you in silence and in solitude, that is very beneficial to keeping you on the right path. And I always say that if you're feeling bad or you're feeling negative, tap into those feelings and kind of dive deep in and see what the source of those feelings are, because they said that our feelings are also, navigators, our compass to remind us that we are not fulfilling our purpose, or we're not on the right path. And so when you're feeling that negativity, see what the source is, and try and tap into the source, because that source is probably the answer to moving you to the right path and finding your happiness and being authentic. And like you said, it's universal law. It's like when you are being you, and you're serving your purpose, you don't have to know how you're going to make money or survive. It just happens. And there's pure examples of that all over the place. And some of the people that have the best lives they're fulfilling their purpose, and they're living their purpose, and they've tapped into it. And there's absolutely complete ebb and flow, and there's no what I call resistance or inner struggles that a lot of us have, because we know that we should be doing something else, but we are tethered to our jobs, we're tethered to relationships, we're tethered to certain responsibilities that we kind of took on in this situation of having plan B. Like we always, why do we go to plan B why do we blend in plan A and we fall back on plan B, right? For security reasons. Right. It's
Yeah. And I would say my biggest takeaways are, one, all flowers are beautiful, so just be the flower that you are. And a Shakespeare quote from Hamlet, Polonius said, "To thine own self be true." So meditate upon what that means. Be true to yourself. So thank you guys all for watching.
Thank you guys. Yeah.
Tune back in. Follow us.
Go get my haircut like in 2 days or so. So next time you see me, it'll be fresh.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thank you for tuning into the Cowfish Show. Check back for future episodes on raising consciousness, creating happiness, fulfillment, and love.
And remember to find us and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube at The Cowfish Show.